Chapter 941. However, Orin instantly understood. That man had probably offended Wilbur. Figuring that out, he laughed internally. Wilbur was someone that even Orin himself could not afford to mess with. He could not believe that someone like Shagula dared to provoke Wilbur. That guy was truly asking for trouble. I see. How about I go with you? Orin offered to take on the task without requiring Wilbur's request. He would be stupid to not seize the opportunity. Wilbur smiled slightly and said, "Sure." Then, Wilbur stood up, and Orin also followed suit. He told Benjamin and Zedek, "Mr. Grayson, Zedek, please excuse us for a moment. We'll be back shortly." Zedek was experienced, so he could tell what was happening. He smiled and nodded knowingly. Benjamin shook his head and laughed, then said, "Go on and hurry back." They nodded and left the private room. Benjamin looked at Zedek and laughed. He said, "Youngsters these days have quite a temper." "Mr. Penn is quite forgiving for someone of his caliber," said Zedek with a smile. Zedek had been working in politics for many years, so he knew how capable Wilbur was. Wilbur was someone with both status and power. If he truly wanted to mess with Shagu, he could easily have Orin pass on a message and land him in a lot of trouble. Shagu might even end up in jail. Shagu was considered quite lucky to have this chance to settle the score in person. Wilbur arrived at room number 666. He pushed the door and barged right in. Quill and Shagu were cheering and drinking at that moment. The bodyguards immediately stopped Wilbur from getting closer when they saw him. Wilbur smiled and said, "I'm only here to offer a toast. Relax." Quill seemed drunk because he was red in the face. He laughed when he saw Wilbur and asked, "What's this? Are you afraid now?" "I'm just worried," said Wilbur sarcastically. Quill sneered coldly and said, "At least you have common sense." Shagu frowned and said, "Hurry up and get him out of here." Quill kept nodding and told the bodyguards, "Throw him out. He has no right to offer us a toast." A bodyguard extended his arms and looked at Wilbur coldly. He said, "Please, don't make us resort to violence." Wilbur smiled and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to drink with me?" "Who the hell are you? Do you think you deserve to drink with us?" Shagu had a little too much to drink and was feeling annoyed, which resulted in his rude behavior. Wilbur smiled and said, "I'm giving you one last chance. I hope you'll appreciate it." "What the fuck are you talking about? I'll throw you out of this building." Quill was furious, and the bodyguards looked displeased too. Just as they were about to grab Wilbur, they suddenly heard a voice asking, "How about a toast from me then, Chief Law? Do you think that's all right?" Orin slowly entered the private room as he spoke. The bodyguards wanted to step forward and stop him, but Shagu exclaimed, "Stop! Stand back!" The bodyguards were startled and hurriedly stepped to the side. Shagu stood up in a panicked manner. He jogged towards Orin and said cautiously, "Mr. Campbell, you're here too." Quill was instantly baffled. "Mr. Campbell? Isn't Orin Campbell the person in charge of Cardin Province? What is he doing here?" Quill wondered. Quill stood up quickly and looked at Orin with respect. Frankly, given Quill's status, he would only get to hang around with someone like Shagu. It was a huge honor for him to be able to meet Orin. Orin smiled coldly and said, "I'm coincidentally here for a meal. I heard from my buddy that you guys met in the elevator, and he came to offer you a toast, so I decided to come along." "Buddy?" Shagu instantly wanted to flee when he heard that. He slowly turned to look at Wilbur with a terrified look on his face.